Rap music has produced some of the most unlikely success stories the world has ever seen. We're talking about kids who grew up with nothing, no money, no connections, no safety net, just raw talent, hunger, and an unshakable belief that they were destined for something greater. These are the rappers who came from the absolute bottom, from broken homes, from the trenches, from neighborhoods where making it out was never guaranteed, where the odds were stacked against them from the moment they were born. And somehow, against everything, they built empires. Not just music careers, not just record deals, empires. We're talking about businesses, labels, investments, real estate, brand deals, generational wealth built from nothing but a microphone and a dream. These artists didn't just make it out, they flipped their story into something that will last long after the music stops. In this video, we're going to take you inside the most insane, most jaw-dropping, most inspiring empires ever built in the rap game. From the streets to the boardroom, from food stamps to Forbes lists, from survival mode to building something their kids will benefit from. And we're starting with one of the most wild rags to riches stories hip-hop has ever produced. A kid who went from one of the most dangerous blocks in Chicago to becoming one of the most influential figures in the entire music industry. We're starting with Chief Keef. $14 million. That is what Chief Keef's mansion in the California hills is worth right now. $14 million, sitting on a property with a fountain in the front yard, a Lamborghini in the driveway, a recording studio down the hall, and mountain views out the back. And this is the same kid who was on house arrest in his grandmother's living room in Chicago just over a decade ago, with no label, no budget, and nowhere to go. The come-up does not get more dramatic than this. Keith Farrell Cozart, born August 15, 1995, south side of Chicago, Illinois, grew up in the Parkway Garden Homes, a public housing complex so rough the streets renamed it O-Block. No silver spoon, no connections, no safety net. Just a grandmother named Margaret Carter raising him on a school bus driver's salary, a karaoke machine his mom left behind, and a gift for rap that showed up before he even knew what to do with it. He was 5 years old the first time he recorded himself spitting bars. 5. Borrowing blank tapes from the neighbors just to hear his own voice played back. His biological father was never really in the picture. His grandmother was everything, and Chief Keef has said as much publicly. In one Instagram post honoring her after she passed, he talked about hoping he gave her something to brag about. That right there tells you everything about who this man is underneath all the flex. But growing up in O-Block meant the streets were always right there, always pulling. And by the time Keef was in his early teens, he was already catching cases and drawing attention from law enforcement. At 16, he ended up on house arrest at his grandmother's home after an incident involving police. No studio access, no label, no budget, just a teenager legally confined to a house in one of the most dangerous zip codes in America. Here is where it gets crazy, fam. Most kids in that situation fold. They sit down, stay quiet, wait it out. Keef turned that house into a studio. He shot his now legendary music video for I Don't Like right there in that living room. No set design, no wardrobe budget, no director with credits. Just him, his gang dancing and rapping in front of a camera because the song was too real to sit on. The video looked exactly like what it was. A kid from the hood doing what he loves with what he had. And that rawness, that authenticity, that is exactly what made the internet lose its mind. I Don't Like hit the clubs in Chicago first. Then it spread block to block, high school to high school, city to city. The drill sound, that dark, heavy beat produced by Young Chop, the deadpan delivery, the street-coded lyrics, it was unlike anything mainstream hip-hop had heard before. People couldn't look away. They couldn't stop playing it. Then Kanye West heard it. Kanye, who was also from Chicago, understood immediately what he was listening to. This was not just a hot record. This was a generational sound. So Kanye did something that changed Chief Keef's life forever. He remixed the track himself, pulling in Big Sean, Pusha T, and Jadakiss, and dropped it to the world. According to reports from that period, Chief Keef suddenly shot up out of obscurity overnight. That is the only way to describe it. One day, he's a 16-year-old on house arrest in O-Block. The next, every major label in America is lining up outside his grandmother's door. Young Jeezy CTE World wanted him. Def Jam was calling. Atlantic was interested. It was a full-on bidding war over a teenager who legally could not leave his block. Chief Keef and his team waited it out and let the offers stack. And when they finally made their move, they went with Interscope Records, one of the most powerful labels in the world, for a deal worth $6 million across 3 albums, plus an additional $440,000 advance to launch his own label imprint, Glory Boys Entertainment. $6 million, a 16-year-old. From O-Block, Chicago. Let that actually sit with you for a second. This is a kid who was on house arrest months earlier shooting a music video in his grandmother's living room because he had nowhere else to go. And now he is signing a multi-million-dollar record deal that would have seemed like a fantasy to anyone who knew where he came from. His debut album, Finally Rich, dropped in December 2012. Love Sosa and Hate Being Sober were on there. The project peaked in the top 30 of the Billboard 200. The world now knew the name Chief Keef. The drill sound was officially out of Chicago and onto the global stage, and the money was officially flowing. And the very first thing he did with that money, he started spending it on properties and living like the future he had always envisioned for himself. The come up had begun, but that's nothing compared to what he has built since. Because the real Chief Keef empire story doesn't start in Chicago. It starts the moment he got on a plane and headed west. Because Chicago gave him the come up, California gave him the empire. And the difference between those two things is everything. Now let's move on to the California pivot, because this is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. One of the first things Chief Keef did with his Interscope money was rent the 6,000 square foot mansion in Highland Park, Illinois, a suburb just outside Chicago. 6 bedrooms, a home theater, views of Lake Michigan. This was a teenager, fam. A kid who grew up in a housing project, now rattling around a 6,000 square foot palace. You can just see how surreal that must have felt. Going to sleep in a house that size when months earlier, you were under house arrest in your grandmother's living room. But the Highland Park chapter collapsed fast. By 2014, he had fallen roughly $30,000 behind in rent, and the eviction notices hit. Now, most people in that position would go quiet, embarrassed, maybe retreat back home and regroup in private. Not Sosa. He went on Instagram almost immediately and posted 2 words: "Sky is the limit." Then he announced he was moving to California. What really got people talking was the boldness of that move. No apology, no explanation, just a rebrand in real time, executed with the same confidence he brought to everything else. He packed up and headed to Los Angeles, one of the most expensive real estate markets on the entire planet, and started building from there. He landed in the San Fernando Valley, specifically the Woodland Hills and Tarzana corridor. And if you know anything about Los Angeles geography, you know that area is a completely different universe from where he came from. Gated driveways, mountain views, quiet streets, celebrity neighbors. The kind of neighborhood where nobody's outside arguing at midnight because everyone's too busy protecting their property values. For Chief Keef, coming off years of legal drama, evictions, and Chicago street politics, this was exactly the environment he needed to lock in and get serious about building something that would last. And hit that subscribe button right quick before we keep going, because we're about to get into the actual mansion, the cars that fill his garage, exactly how much he gets paid per show, and what it really costs to run a California empire at this level. You do not want to miss this. Now, in the case of the Woodland Hills mansion, this is the crown jewel of Chief Keef's California empire. And when you hear what's inside, you will understand why people in the hip-hop community talk about this property the way they do. This is not a house. This is a compound. This is a declaration. The property has been valued at up to $14 million. Let that land for a second. The average American home costs around $400,000. Keef's crib is worth 35 of those, stacked. The estate sits in one of the most sought-after pockets of Los Angeles, tucked into the San Fernando Valley, where you need a gate code just to access the street. It's the kind of neighborhood where privacy is the most expensive amenity of all, and Chief Keef is paying for every inch of it. The house itself spans over 5,000 square feet of living space, 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, Mediterranean-style architecture with stucco finishes, a red tile roof, and a gated entrance that announces immediately this is not a regular residence. This is an estate. You walk through the front gate and the first thing that greets you is a massive front yard with a working fountain right in the middle. A fountain. This is a kid who grew up in public housing in Chicago. Now he's got a fountain in his front yard in California. You can just see how that moment, the first time he pulled up to this property and knew it was his, must have hit different than anything he had ever experienced. Step inside and the living room takes over. Cavernous ceilings, a real fireplace, a massive television, furniture that looks like it was selected by someone who actually knows what they're doing with an interior design budget. The walls are clean and white, the layout is wide open, and the whole space breathes money in the quietest possible way. The kitchen is full granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, a breakfast bar, and a walk-in pantry big enough to stock for a month. Whether Chief Keef has a private chef rolling through or he's just ordering in, the infrastructure is there either way. But where this house really separates itself from a regular luxury property is what Keef built into the interior beyond the basics. There is a home recording studio inside this house. Not a corner with a microphone and some phone panels. An actual professional recording setup built into the property. For an artist who has consistently dropped multiple projects per year, this is not a luxury. This is a business decision. No booking fees, no hourly studio rates, no scheduling around other artists. Just walk down the hall at 3 a.m. when the idea hits. Press record and go to work. That studio alone has probably paid for itself many times over. Then there's the arcade room. According to people who have been inside the property, the arcade in this house is on a different level entirely. We're talking a full collection of vintage and modern machines. The kind of setup that a kid who grew up with nothing dreams about, specifically because it's the furthest thing imaginable from that reality. Sosa made it real. He literally has an arcade in his house. There's also a home theater, a game room, a wine cellar, and a sauna. The backyard runs deep, full swimming pool, a jacuzzi, a patio with seating, a fire pit, and a basketball court sitting under California mountain views. The backyard alone is bigger than most New York City apartments. You can just see how a summer afternoon back there, pool running, music playing, mountains in the background, feels like a world that O-Block never could have offered. That contrast is what makes this story hit so hard, because Keef has not forgotten where he came from. He just made sure he would never have to go back. What really made the Tarzana property headline news was a 2018 incident that reminded everyone how seriously Chief Keef takes security now. 2 suspects tried to break into his Tarzana residence while he was inside. One of them actually fired a shot at responding police officers when they arrived. Nobody was hurt, but that situation was deeply alarming, and it led to a full security upgrade across every California property Chief Keef operates out of. After that, the man locked his California footprint down tight. The Woodland Hills and Tarzana corridor is Chief Keef territory now. He has been planting roots there for years, and the properties he controls in that area are the physical foundation of everything else he has built. But that's nothing compared to what's sitting in the garage, because the car collection is where Chief Keef's money really becomes visible in a way you cannot miss. Now let's get into every single machine in that garage, because this fleet is a full-on statement. First car we need to talk about is the Lamborghini Urus, because in 2023, Chief Keef did something with his that broke the internet. He didn't just buy a Urus, he commissioned a fully custom Scooby-Doo themed Lamborghini Urus, custom wrapped, custom interior details, a one-on-one machine based on a cartoon character executed on a $250,000 Italian SUV. The base price on a Urus runs around $250,000. It does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, pushes over 650 horsepower, and already looks like nothing else on the road. What Chief Keef did to his got millions of views across social media before he even had to say a word about it. That is brand marketing on a level most companies can't buy. Then there's the Lamborghini SVJ, which is an entirely different conversation. The SVJ is a track-focused supercar, naturally aspirated V12 engine, 759 horsepower, top speed of 217 miles per hour. Only 900 coupe versions were ever produced worldwide. The retail price sits around $580,000. Chief Keef has one, sitting in his garage in Woodland Hills, waiting for the mood to strike. The Rolls-Royce Cullinan is in the fleet too. The Cullinan is the most expensive SUV Rolls-Royce makes, starting around $350,000 and climbing well past $500,000 with customization. Hand-stitched interior leather, real wood paneling, the kind of silence inside the cabin that makes the outside world feel like it's happening to someone else. This is the car you pull up in when you want to say everything without opening your mouth. The Ferrari SF90 rounds out the top tier. Ferrari's plug-in hybrid hypercar, 986 combined horsepower from a twin-turbocharged V8 and 3 electric motors. 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. Top speed over 200 miles per hour. Base price around $520,000. This is one of the most technologically advanced road cars ever built, and Chief Keef is running it through the streets of Los Angeles on a regular basis. Add in a Mercedes-Benz AMG G63, the boxy 577 horsepower celebrity SUV that starts around $160,000 and turns heads everywhere it goes. And the Mopar Red-Eye Dodge Challenger throwing down 797 horsepower of American muscle. And you start to understand that this garage covers every possible energy. Luxury, exotic, performance, muscle, all of it represented. Earlier in his career, the fleet also included a Ferrari 458 Spider, multiple Bentleys, a Mulsanne, a Continental, and a Roadster, an Audi Q7, and a BMW i8. Some of those rotated out as the collection evolved, but at any given moment, Chief Keef's garage represents millions of dollars in automotive hardware under one roof. Y'all think this is just about showing off? Nah. For Keef, the cars are an extension of the brand identity. Every clip, every photo, every sighting is content. It's cultural presence. It's the answer to every person who ever doubted that a kid from Parkway Garden Homes could build something real and lasting. Pulling up in a $580,000 SVJ when you used to borrow blank tapes from your neighbors to record your voice is not a flex. It's a testimony. It's the physical manifestation of a story that most people would not have bet on. And Sosa knew it was coming the whole time. Now let's get into the actual money. How much he earns, how much goes out, and how he keeps all of this running. Because this is where people's jaws really drop. Chief Keef's estimated net worth sits at around $4 million as of 2025. Some reports put it higher, some lower. The number has fluctuated over the years based on legal costs, child support obligations, and the natural ups and downs of an independent music career. But what matters is the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is strong. According to reports, Chief Keef earns between $40,000 and $85,000 per show. Per show. On a busy run, he's hitting multiple stages per month. Do the math at the low end. 10 shows brings in $400,000. Just for performing, just for doing what he has been doing since he was a teenager in his grandmother's house. The touring income alone would cover most people's annual salary in a single weekend. Song features are an even bigger bag per transaction. He reportedly charges around $150,000 per feature verse. That is the rate you can command when your name carries the weight that Chief Keef does. When other artists know that your voice on their track adds credibility, street credibility, cultural credibility that money alone cannot manufacture. Artists are paying 6 figures just to get Sosa on a song. Not because it's trending, not because his team pushed for it, because the value is genuinely there. And the industry knows it. That tells you everything about where his name sits 15 years into this career. Beyond performing, the business side is where the real foundation lives. Chief Keef runs Glow Gang, which started as a music collective and expanded into a full clothing brand with merchandise that his fan base actively seeks out and purchases. He also operates 43 Billion, his own record label, which gives him complete ownership and control over his music in a way the Interscope deal never could. When you own your masters and run your own label, you are the corporation. You are not waiting on a quarterly statement from someone else's accounting department. The money comes to you directly. His catalog generates streaming royalties every single month. Love Sosa has been played hundreds of millions of times since 2012. I Don't Like Finetto, Keki, Earned It, Numbas. These records are still playing in cars, gyms, and parties all over the world more than a decade after they dropped. That is passive income. That is the machine running in the background whether Chief Keef is working or not. It does not stop. It does not call in sick. It does not need a meeting. It just pays every single month, on top of everything else. Sponsorships add another layer. He reportedly pulls 6 figures per brand partnership deal. And given that he is genuinely one of the most sampled and referenced artists in the last 15 years of hip-hop, brands that want access to his audience are willing to pay for it. Now let's talk about what all of this actually costs to maintain, because this is the part most people skip over. A $14 million property in Los Angeles generates serious property tax obligations every single year. Security costs money, and after the 2018 Tarzana break-in incident, Chief Keef does not play about his security infrastructure. Utilities on a 5,000-plus square foot home with a pool, a jacuzzi, a home gym, a recording studio, and an arcade running at all times are not a small monthly expense. Landscaping, staffing, repairs, upkeep, it all adds up in ways that most people never think about when they look at someone's lifestyle from the outside. The car collection carries its own overhead entirely, ensuring a Lamborghini SVJ, a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a Ferrari SF90, and multiple other exotics simultaneously is a significant annual cost. Maintenance on Italian supercars does not happen at your neighborhood shop. Specialized service, dealer maintenance schedules, and the inevitable wear on machines driven hard on Los Angeles streets, all of it eats into the budget consistently. And Chief Keef has 9 children. Child support obligations have been documented as part of his financial picture for years. Courts have pursued him for payments at various points in his career, which helps explain the fluctuation in reported net worth figures despite the consistent income he generates. He is supporting a large family while also maintaining one of the most expensive lifestyles in hip-hop. But here is what's real, gang. The man has built a diversified financial engine: label income, touring income, streaming royalties, merchandise, feature fees, brand partnerships, multiple streams feeding the same operation. And he has actual real property and business equity to show for the years of work, not just memories of money that already got spent. What really got the hip-hop community talking over the last few years is how the jewelry collection has grown right alongside everything else. Chief Keef is known for wearing serious custom pieces, chains and pendants with real diamond weight, Glow Gang logo pieces iced out by the best jewelers in the game, wrist setups that announce themselves before he even walks into a room. We're talking pieces that cost tens of thousands of dollars each. The kind of collection that a professional appraiser has to sit with for a minute before giving you a number. In the world of hip-hop jewelry, Keef's collection is not just about flexing. It is a physical timeline of the journey. Every chain is a chapter, every pendant is proof that O-Block is a long way away. The lifestyle in Woodland Hills is everything that O-Block wasn't. Gated, quiet, private, mountain views from the backyard, a different exotic in the driveway depending on the day's energy. A recording studio 30 feet from the bedroom, so when a song idea shows up at 2 in the morning, which is exactly when they tend to show up for artists like him, he does not have to go anywhere. He just walks down the hall. He is still actively creating too. Almighty So 2 dropped in 2024, showing that more than a decade into this career, the engine is still running full speed. The output has not slowed. The influence has not faded. Younger artists across every lane of rap still name Chief Keef as a direct reference for the music, for the delivery, for the attitude, for the independent mindset. His cadence alone has been borrowed so many times by so many artists that it stopped being an influence and became a fundamental element of the genre. Glow Gang has become a full cultural identity beyond just a brand. People get Glow Gang tattoos. People name their crews after it. In certain corners of hip-hop, it is not a label, it is a worldview. And every piece of that cultural weight converts into financial weight for the man who built it from scratch in a housing project on the south side of Chicago. That is real equity, the kind that does not show up on a balance sheet but absolutely shows up in the room when his name gets mentioned. So where does the empire stand today as we move through 2025 into 2026? Chief Keef is 30 years old. He started rapping at 5. He went viral at 16. He changed the sound of hip-hop at 17 with Finally Rich. He has been through a major label deal and a major label drop. He has been evicted from mansions. He has faced legal battles, public setbacks, child support court dates, and more than a few moments where it looked like the story might end very differently than it has. And through all of it, the chaos, the noise, the people writing him off, he kept building, kept dropping music, kept expanding the footprint. That level of consistency under pressure is genuinely rare in this industry, and it is a huge part of why the empire is still standing and still growing today. But the California chapter has been the most stable and the most expansive chapter of his life. The hills have been good to Sosa. The Woodland Hills and Tarzana corridor is his territory now. Not in the street sense, but in the real estate, business, and lifestyle sense. He built something out there that Chicago could not give him, and he did it on his own terms with no one holding the pen but him. His empire today is real estate that has appreciated significantly since purchase. The Woodland Hills property alone climbed from $1.5 million at acquisition to over $2.5 million in current estimated value, meaning he is building actual generational wealth through property ownership, not just spending. A garage full of $1 million machines, a catalog that pays monthly without asking anything in return, a label he controls entirely, a clothing brand with a loyal global customer base, a touring schedule that puts six-figure checks in his pocket every time he takes a stage, and a cultural legacy that nobody can take, copy, or replace. That is what a real empire looks like, not just a big number on a contract, the whole structure, standing on its own. No cap, Chief Keef is one of the most important artists of the last 15 years of hip-hop, not just for the hits, not just for the money, for the blueprint he drew for an entire generation of kids who grew up in places the world forgot about. He showed them that raw talent and real authenticity, not industry connections, not a famous family, not money to begin with, can take you from borrowing blank tapes in O-Block to owning $14 million worth of California Hills real estate before you turn 30. He is proof that the system does not have to open a door for you if you are willing to build your own. And that is a lesson that goes way beyond music. He went from recording music videos under house arrest in his grandmother's home to sitting on top of a $14 million estate in Los Angeles, a garage full of Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and Ferraris, running his own label, stacking royalties on catalog that defined a genre, raising 9 kids, and keeping a lifestyle going that most people cannot even picture in their imagination. He did it before he was old enough to rent a car. He was already a millionaire while most of his peers were still figuring out high school. That is not normal. That is not common. That is Chief Keef, and the world is still catching up to what he started. That's the real story, fam. Not just the music, not just the hits. The empire. The California empire. Built from the ground up, brick by brick, bar by bar, one property at a time and one car at a time, and one stream at a time. And from where Sosa is sitting right now, up in those hills, with the mountains behind him and the whole city spread out below, it does not look like he is slowing down anytime soon. And speaking of artists who built empires from nothing that the world is still trying to fully understand and figure out, click this video right here to see how other rappers from the streets are stacking real estate, running their own labels, and building generational wealth that goes way beyond the music. You will not be disappointed, gang.
My brother burying 200,000 in the backyard.
It was wrapped in plastic, like sandwich bags. Each 1,000, you had it wrapped up. And I'm digging for hours and hours, pulling my hair out because I'm not hitting the safe. You know, I'm praying like, man, finally I hit. And when I open it, it's filled up with water.
Before we get into this, I need you to understand something. This man was out here moving weight in the streets, running $100,000 DVD operations, and building an empire long before most people even knew his name, Black Sam. Nipsey Hussle's older brother, a street legend in his own right. But here's what's crazy, while most people who came up the way he did either ended up locked up or on the ground, Sam is out here in 2026 living a lifestyle that will make your jaw drop. Custom whips, iced out chains, a burger spot that turned into a full-blown business empire. And it all started from nothing, literally selling bootleg DVDs out the trunk of a car in Crenshaw. So the question is, how did a street hustler from South Central Los Angeles go from moving product on the block to sitting on millions? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Black Sam built his empire, why Nipsey's death changed everything for his business, and what his life actually looks like in 2026. This one's going to be a story you don't want to miss. Alright, so let's start from the beginning, because you can't understand what Black Sam is today without understanding where he came from. Black Sam, real name Samil Askadam, was born and raised in the Crenshaw district of South Los Angeles, California. For those of y'all that don't know, Crenshaw ain't just a neighborhood, it's a culture, it's a whole way of life. Growing up out there in the late 80s and 90s, you were surrounded by hustle on every level. Some of that hustle was legal, a lot of it wasn't. And if you grew up without money, without resources, without somebody handing you a roadmap out, you figured it out the best way you knew how. Sam is the older brother of the late great Ammius Askedom, the man the world came to know as Nipsey Hussle. Their family had Eritrean roots on their father's side, and that African heritage gave both brothers a certain kind of pride and work ethic that you can trace through everything they did later in life. But pride and work ethic don't pay bills when you're a young kid in South Central with limited options in front of you. Growing up, Sam was the big brother, and in environments like Crenshaw, being the big brother means something. You set the tone. You show the younger ones how to move. You figure things out first so they don't have to. That dynamic between Sam and Nipsey wasn't just typical brotherly love. It was a real partnership from day one. These two weren't just siblings. They were a team. And the streets of Crenshaw, that was their classroom. Everything they learned about loyalty, about reading people, about protecting what's yours, and building from nothing, they learned it right there. No shortcuts, no handouts, just life coming at you full speed and figuring out how to handle it. Now here's where the story gets real interesting, because a lot of people hear the name Black Sam and they associate it immediately with Nipsey Hussle. But Sam was putting in work long before his little brother ever picked up a microphone. When Sam was coming up, he was already tapped into the hustle mentality. This wasn't a dude who was waiting around for opportunity to knock on his door. He was out there creating his own lanes. And one of the first real lanes he found, DVDs. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking, DVDs? That doesn't sound like no empire. But hold on, because you need to understand the era we're talking about. This is early to mid 2000s Los Angeles. Streaming doesn't exist yet. Netflix was still mailing discs in red envelopes. If you wanted to watch the latest movies without paying full price for a ticket or a retail copy, you were buying bootlegs, and bootleg DVDs were moving in the hood like water. Sam recognized that before most people. He set up shop and started pushing copy movies on the streets of Crenshaw. And when his little brother Nipsey was old enough, Sam put him on. That's just what you do when you're the big brother and you got something going. You bring family in. So now you got these two young Askedom brothers out here. Sam running the operation, Nipsey learning the ropes, moving DVDs out of trunks at swap meets, on corners, anywhere they could find a customer. And they weren't making chump change either. We're talking about an operation that at its height was generating hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not a few thousand, not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Think about that for a second. These were teenagers and young men with no college degrees, no investors, no venture capital, just raw hustle, street intelligence, and a product the community wanted. They built a cash business from the ground up with nothing but grind. That early experience taught Sam something that a lot of entrepreneurs spend years in business school trying to learn: how to identify demand, how to move product, how to manage cash flow, and how to operate in a competitive market without any of the traditional safety nets. He just learned it on the streets of South Central instead of in the classroom. And that foundation, that's what everything else got built on. Now here's where the two brothers' paths start to diverge a little bit. And I say a little bit because even when they went in different directions, they never really separated. That's just how tight Sam and Nipsey were. As the mid 2000s rolled in, Nipsey started getting serious about music. And I mean serious. He wasn't just freestyling at parties or recording for fun. Nipsey had a vision. He understood early on that the music industry was changing, that artists could build independent empires if they were smart about it. He was studying the game at the same time he was playing it. And when Nipsey shifted his energy toward music full time, Sam had a choice to make. He could keep running the DVD operation, which was still making money, or he could pivot and figure out his next move. Because here's the thing about the bootleg DVD hustle. It had an expiration date. Streaming was coming. The internet was changing everything. Anybody with any foresight could see that the physical disc business wasn't going to last forever. Sam had that foresight. While Nipsey was building his name in the music world, dropping mixtapes, building his Marathon brand, establishing himself as one of the most respected independent artists in the game, Sam started thinking bigger. He started thinking about legitimate business, about putting roots down in the community they both came from. And one of the first things he decided to do was open a restaurant. Now on the surface, that might sound like a random move, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Sam had spent years running the cash operation. He understood how to manage a business. He understood Crenshaw, understood what the community needed and what it would support. A burger spot in the hood wasn't just a business decision, it was a statement. It was saying, I'm investing back into the place that raised me. So that's exactly what he did. Sam opened up his burger restaurant, and from jump, it wasn't just a place to eat, it became a spot. A community fixture. In neighborhoods like Crenshaw, when somebody from the block opens a business, it means something different than it does in other parts of the city. It means somebody who looks like you, who grew up like you, who knows what you've been through, they made it far enough to build something with 4 walls and a sign on the door. People from the community came out to support because they knew Sam. They knew the family, they knew the Asghedom name, and they respected what it represented. Nipsey, by this point, was well on his way to becoming a legend in LA. So the fact that his older brother was out here building a legitimate business only added to the credibility Sam already had from his years in the streets. The food was good, the location was right, the vibe was authentic, and Sam was grinding on the business side the same way he used to grind on the block. Consistent, strategic, and with his whole chest. He wasn't halfway in. When Sam commits to something, he goes all the way. The burger spot started gaining traction. Word was spreading. Revenue was coming in. Sam was learning the restaurant business in real time, figuring out staffing, supply chains, customer service, all the things that come with running a food operation. It wasn't overnight success, but it was progress, real tangible progress. And then on March 31st, 2019, everything changed. Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed in front of his own store, the Marathon Clothing, on Slauson Avenue in Los Angeles. He was 33 years old. The world stopped. Not just the hip-hop world, the whole world. Nipsey had become more than a rapper by that point. He was a community leader, a visionary and activist, a blueprint for how you could come from the bottom and build something meaningful without compromising who you are. His death sent shockwaves through South Central, through LA, through the entire culture. For Sam, it was personal in a way that most people can't even comprehend. This wasn't just losing a public figure, this was losing his little brother, his partner, the same person he used to run DVDs with, the same person he brought up in the game, the same person he spent his entire life being a big brother to. That loss was incalculable, but Sam did what he's always done. He kept moving. Now I want to be careful here, because I'm not saying Sam profited off his brother's death in some cold-blooded way. That's not what happened, and that's not the story. What happened was something more organic than that, something rooted in community, loyalty, and the way people express grief by showing up for the ones still standing. After Nipsey passed, people who loved him, and that was a lot of people, started looking for ways to keep his legacy alive. They started supporting the businesses and the people connected to him. They visited the Marathon Clothing. They streamed his music. They showed love to his family. And a significant portion of that love flowed directly towards Sam and his burger spot. People started coming out in droves. Fans of Nipsey who had never heard of Sam's restaurant before were now pulling up just to support, just to feel connected to something that Nipsey was connected to. The foot traffic exploded. Sales went up dramatically. What had been a steadily growing local business suddenly had a platform that extended far beyond Crenshaw. And Sam was smart enough to leverage that moment correctly. He didn't just collect the money and keep it moving, he reinvested. He expanded. He used the increased revenue and visibility to level up the operation, improve quality, and build the brand further. He understood that the wave of support wasn't going to last forever if he didn't build something sustainable on top of it. That's that business intelligence talking. The same intelligence he developed back when he was running a 6-figure DVD operation as a teenager. Sam has always known how to take an opportunity and maximize it. The circumstances were tragic, but his response was professional, disciplined, and calculated. Over time, the burger spot became more than just a burger spot. It became a monument in the community, a place people came to not just because the food was good, but because of what it represented. A tangible piece of a legacy, a reminder that the marathon continues, a proof of concept that brothers from Crenshaw could build something real and lasting. And as the business grew, so did Sam's profile. He wasn't just Nipsey's brother anymore, he was becoming known in his own right as a businessman, an entrepreneur, someone who had taken everything life threw at him and turned it into fuel. Alright, so let's fast forward to where Sam is right now in 2026. Because this is where the story gets fun. Because Black Sam is not living like somebody who's just getting by. He is not driving a regular car and counting pennies. Bro is out here living like the streets always promised you could if you made the right moves and survived long enough to collect. Let's talk about the cars first, because the whips are a whole chapter on their own. Sam has been seen pushing some serious metal. We're talking about luxury vehicles that most people only see in music videos, the kind of cars that make you stop and stare when they roll down the block. High-end foreign cars, custom paint jobs, the whole nine. And we're not talking about one car either. Sam has a whole collection, different cars for different moods, different occasions, different statements. That's what real money looks like. Not just one nice thing, but options, the ability to choose. Growing up in South Central, a nice car has always been a symbol that carries weight. It means you made it. It means all that sacrifice, all that grind, all those early mornings and late nights actually produce something. When you see Sam pull up, you understand immediately that this is not a man who's been sitting still. And it's not just about showing off, though I mean, let's be real, a little flexing is well earned at this point. It's also about representation. When a dude from Crenshaw who used to hustle DVDs to survive is now pulling up in 6-figure vehicles, that sends a message to every young kid in that same zip code. It says the outcome doesn't have to be a cell or a casket. There's another option. Now the jewelry, y'all know Sam ain't slipping in the chain department. We're talking about pieces that would make a jeweler's eyes water. Custom chains, heavy pendants, iced out timepieces. Sam moves like a man who knows the value of looking like what he's built. The jewelry isn't random either. A lot of the pieces Sam wears carry meaning. There are tributes to Nipsey in his jewelry collection, pieces that keep his brother's image and legacy close, literally worn over his heart. That's not just a flex, that's love. That's grief turned into gold. Sam has also been seen with other high-end accessories, designer fits, exclusive sneakers, the kind of wardrobe that you don't put together without serious disposable income and a real sense of style. He moves through the world now with a certain kind of presence that you can't fake and you can't buy overnight. It comes from decades of carrying yourself with dignity even when the circumstances said otherwise. Now let's talk about something that a lot of people overlook when they discuss Black Sam, and that's how he moves on social media. Because in 2026, your online presence is an extension of your brand, and Sam understands that better than most. He's not out here posting every 5 minutes or doing the most for attention. Sam moves with intention on social media the same way he moves in real life. Calculated, deliberate, and always with purpose. When he posts, people pay attention. Whether it's a photo next to one of his whips, a clip from inside the restaurant, or a tribute post for Nipsey on an anniversary, every piece of content Sam puts out carries weight. He's built a following that's deeply loyal, people who aren't just fans of his name, but fans of what he represents. And that loyalty translates directly into business. Every time Sam shows up online, it drives traffic, it drives sales, it drives conversations. In today's economy, that kind of organic influence is worth serious money. Brands know it, collaborators know it, and Sam knows it too. He doesn't waste it. What's interesting is that Sam never chased the internet. The internet came to him. That's a distinction most people never get to make. And it says everything about the kind of authenticity he's operated with his entire life. And here's something else worth understanding about where Sam is in 2026. His day-to-day life looks nothing like the come-up. Back in the DVD days, every morning started with uncertainty. Would the product move? Would you run into the wrong people? Would today be a good day or a bad one? That was the grind. Unpredictable, high risk, high reward. Now, Sam wakes up with infrastructure behind him. He's got staff handling the restaurant. He's got systems in place. He's got revenue coming in from multiple directions without him having to be on the corner to make it happen. That's the difference between hustling for money and building something that works for you. It took decades to get there, but that's exactly where Sam sits today. He can move through his day with the level of freedom that street money never gave him, because street money is always one bad day away from disappearing. What Sam has built is different. It's durable. It compounds. And in 2026, that's what real wealth looks like. He's gone from reacting to his circumstances to designing them. And that shift right there is the real definition of making it. Something else that gets talked about when people in LA speak on Black Sam is the way Crenshaw itself has embraced him as one of its own success stories. Not just because of Nipsey, but because Sam showed up and stayed. A lot of people from the hood who make money eventually dip. They move to the hills, they move out of state, they distance themselves from where they came from. Sam didn't do that. He stayed planted in the community, kept pouring into it, kept showing his face, kept making sure the neighborhood that built him got something back from the empire he was building. That kind of loyalty doesn't go unnoticed on the block. The OGs respect it, the young ones study it, and the community at large holds them up as proof that you don't have to abandon where you're from in order to level up. You can bring the block with you. That's a different kind of rich, and it's one that no price tag can ever fully capture. But here's what separates Black Sam from just being a guy who made some money and bought nice things. The man has been building continuously. Even as the lifestyle got bigger, the business foundation underneath it has been getting stronger. The burger spot was just the beginning. Sam has been expanding his entrepreneurial footprint in multiple directions. And in 2026, what he's put together is a genuine enterprise. This isn't one restaurant surviving on nostalgia and community goodwill. This is a businessman who has studied his market, identified opportunities, and executed. Sam has leaned into the brand recognition that comes with his name and his family's legacy. In Los Angeles, particularly in the Black community, the Askadum name opens doors. It carries history and credibility and emotion. Sam has been intentional about channeling that into legitimate business ventures that serve the community while also generating serious revenue. Think about the full picture of what he's built. A full business that survived and thrived during one of the most turbulent periods in recent memory. A personal brand that resonates with a massive and loyal fan base, and the kind of reputation in the streets and in legitimate business circles that money alone can't buy. Sam has both the respect of people who know where he came from and the credibility of someone who has successfully crossed over into legitimate enterprise. And the money is real. When you combine the revenue from the food business, the brand deals, the appearances, and whatever other ventures Sam has in the mix, you're looking at a man who has accumulated generational wealth from a starting point of zero. From bootleg DVDs on a Crenshaw corner to a millionaire lifestyle in 2026. That's not luck. That's architecture. He built this thing brick by brick. Now, we can't talk about Black Sam without talking about what he's done to keep Nipsey's legacy alive, because that's been one of the central missions of his life since March of 2019. Sam has been one of the most visible and consistent figures when it comes to honoring and preserving everything Nipsey built. Whether it's participating in anniversary events, speaking at community gatherings, or simply showing up in Crenshaw and representing, Sam has never let people forget. And that's not just because Nipsey was his brother. It's because Sam understands what Nipsey represented and what would be lost if that representation faded. Nipsey Hussle was proof that you could come from the bottom in South Central, maintain your authenticity, invest in your community, build an independent empire, and become a global figure, doing it all on your own terms. That message doesn't just belong to hip-hop fans. It belongs to every young person in Crenshaw, in Compton, in every underserved community across America who needs to see what's possible. Sam carries that torch. He does it by being visible, by being successful, by being present in the community, and by being someone the next generation can point to and say, look, it's possible. Sam came up the same way Nipsey did. He faced the same obstacles, ran the same streets, made a lot of the same choices, and he came through it. He built something, he survived and thrived. There's also something deeply symbolic about the fact that it's Sam, the big brother, who's still here, still standing, still building. Nipsey was always the one who talked about the marathon, about staying the course, about playing the long game. And in a real sense, Sam is living proof that the marathon was never just a metaphor. It was a blueprint. Every time Sam pulls up to an event, every time he's photographed in that jewelry, every time someone walks into his restaurant and sees the pictures on the wall and feels that connection to something bigger than just a meal, Nipsey lives in that moment. Sam is making sure of it. If you step back and look at the full arc of Sam's life, it's genuinely remarkable. This is a man who grew up with real limited options, who figured out how to make money in the streets because that was the available lane, who ran a $100,000 underground economy with his younger brother when most kids his age were worried about homework, who transitioned out of that life when the game changed, when his family grew, when he realized he needed to build something with longer legs. He opened a business in the community that raised him. He grinded in a restaurant game, which let me tell you is not easy. The restaurant business is brutal. Most restaurants fail within the first year. The margins are thin, the labor is hard, the variables are constant. Sam had no formal culinary training, no hospitality school background. He just had that same street level business intelligence he'd always had, combined with the discipline to learn a new game. And then his world got flipped upside down when Nipsey died. He lost his brother. He lost his closest collaborator. He lost a person who had been his partner through every major chapter of his life. Most people in that situation would fold. The grief alone would be enough to take somebody out, but Sam didn't fold. He channeled. He used the pain as motivation. He used the community's love as fuel. He let Nipsey's legacy be the wind at his back instead of a weight on his chest. And now in 2026, he's sitting on an empire, a real one, built over decades of sacrifice, adaptation, and relentless forward motion. The cars aren't just cars. The chains aren't just jewelry. They're trophies. They're proof of concept. They're what it looks like when somebody from the bottom refuses to accept that the bottom is where the story ends. Black Sam's story doesn't fit neatly into the categories people usually use when they talk about street legends turned businessmen. He's not a cautionary tale. He's not a redemption arc. He's something more complicated and more interesting than either of those things. He's a man who lived his whole life in full. The streets, the hustle, the loss, the grief, the grind, the building, the success, and came out the other side of it still standing, still moving, still representing. And in 2026, the lifestyle he's living is a direct reflection of all of that. Every piece of jewelry tells a story. Every car is a chapter. Every dollar that comes through his business is a vote of confidence from a community that watched him come up from nothing and decided he was worth investing in. There's a generation of young men in Crenshaw and neighborhoods just like it who are watching Black Sam right now. Not just because of the flex, though the flex is real and is earned, but because of what he represents. He represents the possibility that you can come from where they come from, go through what they've been through, lose what he's lost, and still build something that lasts. Think about the full journey one more time. The teenager running bootleg DVDs with his little brother, the man who had the vision to go legit before the streets forced the issue, the businessman who absorbed the worst grief imaginable and turned it into rocket fuel, and the millionaire in 2026 who still shows up in the same neighborhood he started in. That is not a story you hear every day. That is not a path most people find. And the fact that Sam found it and is still walking it means something far bigger than any one video can do justice to. But at the very least, now you know. That's the real millionaire lifestyle of Black Sam. It ain't just the cars and the chains though, those are nice. It's the fact that a dude who started with bootleg DVDs and a vision is now a genuine businessman, a community icon, and a living testament to his brother's favorite word, marathon. Not a sprint, not a shortcut, a marathon. Sam has been running his since day one. And in 2026, he ain't close to the finish line. Long live Nipsey and long may Sam build.
Most rappers leave. The moment the checks clear and the cameras start following them around, they are gone. Out to LA, Atlanta, New York. They trade the city that built them for a zip code that feels more like success. But every now and then somebody flips that script so completely, so deliberately, that the city they stayed in starts feeling like something they personally own. And right now in Texas, that somebody has a name, Sauce Walka. And what he has quietly assembled behind the scenes is the kind of mind-blowing operation that makes people stop and say, wait, how did one independent rapper turn Houston into his personal empire? Yo, what is good, fam? And welcome back, because today we went deeper than the music, deeper than the flexes, deeper than the highlights you already saw on your timeline. We dug into the businesses, the properties, the cars, the income streams, and the infrastructure that made people across Houston start saying he owns this city. And what we found is bigger than most people expected. This is inside Sauce Walka's mind-blowing Texas empire. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into this wild ride, let me keep it 100 with y'all. There's been a lot of talk about Sauce Walka online. People throwing around numbers speculating about what he actually owns versus what is just image. But yo, we about to separate the facts from the fiction, the real from the fake. Because when you actually dig into what this man has built and said publicly about his own operations, what you find is not just a music career that got big. You find a strip mall in Houston with his name on it. You find a strip club he just opened. You find a dispensary with over 20 locations. You find an OnlyFans operation that paid him more than an NFL wide receiver. And that is just the start. The shocking truth about what Sauce Walka has built is more layered than anyone on the outside ever imagined, and we are about to reveal all of it. So check it. To understand what Sauce Walka built, you have to go back to where he started. Born Albert Walker Mondane on June 29, 1990, He grew up on the southwest side of Houston, Texas, inside one of the most culturally specific music scenes in the entire country. He started rapping in 2007 under the name A-Walk as part of a Houston group called Most Heard. But the real chapter that changed everything began in 2014. That is the year he dropped his first projects as Sauce Walka, formed the duo Sauce Twins alongside Sancho Saucy, and founded the Sauce Factory, the independent label that would become the backbone of everything he built after. 2014, 1 year. 3 moves that set the entire machine in motion. Now in Houston hip-hop, we know that 2014 was also the year the culture started paying serious attention to what was coming out of the Southwest side, and Sauce Walka was sitting right at the center of it. His energy was undeniable. That raw, unfiltered, unapologetically Houston delivery that did not sound like Atlanta, did not sound like New York, did not sound like anything being pushed on mainstream radio. It sounded like the southwest side of Houston, and it resonated immediately with people who had been waiting for exactly that. He is also publicly credited with popularizing the word drip in modern hip-hop. Soulja Boy himself confirmed it, going on record to say the person on the forefront with it was Sauce Walka and TSF. That kind of cultural fingerprint does not happen by accident. It happens when somebody is genuinely setting trends rather than following them. But here is where it gets real. While other artists were chasing label deals and hoping somebody in a suit would come validate their career, Sauce Walka was building infrastructure. The Sauce Factory, founded in 2014, became the umbrella for everything. The label signed Peso Peso, Rizzo, Fifth Ward JP, Sancho Saucy, Raji Diego, and Say So P. Each one of those artists represents a revenue stream, a creative asset, and a piece of the TSF brand that extends the label's presence beyond just one person's music. And Sauce Walka's quote about independence from his recent XXL Talk It Up interview says everything about the mindset behind all of it. He said, and I quote, "It do feel good to achieve it independently instead of the other way, because it is a longer journey that you retain more ownership in the end." Then he followed that up by saying he is more interested in the profits than the accolades. That is not artist talk. That is businessman talk. Let me break down for y'all exactly how the income stacks up, because this is where the real picture starts coming into focus, and where most people who are not paying close attention get completely lost. Let's start with music. Sauce Walka has released over 20 mixtapes and multiple albums, including Splat Mafia, Chicken and Sauce, 88 Boys, and Sauce Father 2, which dropped in 2024 with features from Travis Scott, Lil Yachty, and Rizzo. His catalog is available across every major streaming platform, and because he operates independently, the recording royalties from every single stream flow back to him rather than to a label recouping in advance. In 2026, his track Stop Snitching with A$AP Rocky landed on the Billboard Hot 100, debuting at number 62, his first Hot 100 placement. Achieved independently, without a major label machine behind it. Let that sink in for a minute. Performance income is another serious layer. Sauce Walka has a live following in Texas that is as loyal as it gets, and that loyalty translates directly into booking fees. Headlining appearances in Houston, Dallas, and across the Texas circuit, combined with festival dates and out-of-state shows, put consistent money into the operation year over year. Beyond ticketed shows, the TSF brand opens doors to private events, brand appearances, and hosting deals that never show up on a streaming chart but generate real income at the business level. Now this is where we got to address the income stream that nobody expected to become one of his biggest: OnlyFans. Sauce Walka has been publicly managing content on OnlyFans for years, and in April of 2026, he posted a screenshot of his earnings statement to Instagram that showed he had earned $6.2 million from just one account over 7 years. One account. He also stated publicly that he manages 12 accounts total. His caption on that post was direct. He said, "I made more money off OnlyFans than an NFL wide receiver." And he noted that the 6.2 million figure was for one account alone. Earlier, in May of 2023, he had already shown screenshots revealing $1 million made across 2 accounts over 4 years. The trajectory on that income stream has been moving in one direction only. That is a revenue model that most artists have not figured out, and Sauce Walka built it into a multi-million-dollar operation while his peers were still treating it as a side experiment. Then there is Sauce Walka Gear, his clothing line which monetizes the visual brand he has spent years building in the public eye, and Ski Taste, his own product line that includes his signature sodas, and his plushie toy line, and a hip-hop video game that he is currently developing as lead creator, which is set to feature Lil Durk, Kodak Black, and Key Glock as playable characters. These are not ideas. These are publicly announced, publicly discussed business ventures that represent Sauce Walka thinking about revenue in ways that most artists simply do not. The real kicker, though, is the physical footprint he has built in Houston, because this is where the empire becomes something you can actually walk up to and touch. And I want to be specific here because the details matter. In mid-2025, Sauce Walka publicly announced that he owns a strip mall at 1419 South Loop West in Houston, Texas. He posted about it himself, calling it Codeine Corner. Inside that strip center, he has built out multiple businesses operating under the same roof. Sauce Factory Studios, his professional recording studio, is in there. A 24-hour tire shop is in there. A THC Club location, his THCA dispensary partnership is in there. And a restaurant he recently opened is also part of the property. When you own the building, you own the businesses inside it, and the income from each of those operations feeds back into the same ecosystem. That is not a music career. That is a commercial real estate portfolio generating multiple revenue streams from a single asset. But here is where it gets even more layered. The THC Club dispensary partnership is not limited to that one location. Sauce Walka has publicly stated he has over 20 dispensary locations operating under the TACA model, with one location confirmed at 14725 Katy Freeway in Houston. 20 locations of a cannabis dispensary business in a state where that market is expanding rapidly. That is a franchise-level operation that most independent artists have never come close to building. And then there is Splash House. In December of 2024, Sauce Walka publicly revealed and opened Splash House, his own strip club in Houston. The reveal went viral almost immediately, generating massive buzz in the city and beyond. A strip club in a major city like Houston, in a nightlife market that runs every single week of the year, generates consistent recurring revenue that is entirely separate from music, streaming, merchandise, and everything else. Combined with his boxing gym, which has been reported as part of his business portfolio, and the retail store operation he runs, Sauce Walka has built a Houston business ecosystem that generates income across entertainment, hospitality, retail, cannabis, food, and digital content simultaneously. Now let's talk about what people mean when they say Sauce Walka owns Houston, because this is where it goes beyond a list of businesses and into something that is culturally deeper. He does not literally own the city, but when an independent rapper from the Southwest Side builds a strip mall, opens a strip club, runs 20 dispensary locations, has a recording studio with his name on it, and is still making music that lands on the Billboard Hot 100, the word ownership starts to feel accurate in every way that matters. The street's been talking about this for years. The visibility is everywhere, the brand is everywhere, and the investment is real, documented, and public. Houston has always understood this kind of ownership because the city has a tradition of it. Jay Prince built Rap Alive Records into a genuine institution from inside Houston without ever needing the validation of a coastal market. That model proved to an entire generation that independence and scale were not opposites. Sauce Walka is that philosophy in its current form. He even said it himself on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast with Gilly and Wallow, telling them directly, "I own a lot of companies that people do not even know that I own." That line says everything. The public image is already impressive. The private operation is bigger. Now let's get into the lifestyle piece, because this is the part that the internet never gets tired of, and the part that built the visual brand that makes all the business activity feel legendary rather than corporate. The Sauce Walka aesthetic is a specific, deeply Texas flavor of wealth with its own visual codes, and nobody in Houston presents it more consistently. Cars first, because in Houston, cars are identity. His collection is not just expensive, it is curated. Publicly documented vehicles include a 1960 Cadillac Eldorado, which is a piece of automotive history that connects directly to the Houston slab tradition, a Mercedes-Maybach S650, a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, which is one of the most expensive SUVs on the planet, a Lamborghini Urus, a Bentley Bentayga, a Rolls-Royce Wraith, a McLaren 720S with its twin turbocharged V8 pushing over 700 horsepower, a Bentley Continental GT, a Mercedes-Benz S65, and a 2021 Cadillac Escalade. He himself posted to Instagram saying his car collection needs a documentary. And honestly, looking at that list, he is not wrong. That is not a car collection. That is a museum on wheels sitting in Houston, Texas. For y'all who might not understand why jewelry hits different in this context, let me explain. In Southern hip-hop culture, jewelry is not decoration, it is documentation. It marks moments and milestones in a way that is immediate and visual. Sauce Walka's most publicly noted piece is a custom Cuban chain that he had made by Houston-based jeweler Johnny Dang, one of the most respected names in hip-hop jewelry, for which he paid $500,000. One chain, $500,000, made in Houston by a Houston jeweler. Even the way he spends is rooted in the city. His fashion operates the same way. He has publicly stated that Houston was not a fashionable city until the Sauce came through, claiming credit for introducing high-end fashion to the Houston scene in a way that influenced how the city's artists present themselves. Whether you agree or not, the fact that he was saying it with confidence on a major podcast and nobody challenged this seriously tells you everything about the credibility he has built in his own ecosystem. His personal style, designer pieces, custom fits, and intentional presentation have made him one of the most visually recognizable figures in Houston rap for years. Now this is where we got to address how he actually lives day to day, because the business and the lifestyle are not separate conversations for Sauce Walka. They are the same conversation. He is physically present in Houston in a way that makes the empire feel real rather than just digital. The strip center at 1419 South Loop West is not a passive investment sitting somewhere while he lives somewhere else. It is an active operation in his city with his studio, his businesses, and his brand embedded in it. When Splash House opened, he was there. When the dispensary locations open, his name is on them. The presence is constant and it is intentional. A real question people always ask about artists who build this kind of operation is whether the lifestyle spending is sustainable against the business income, or whether the flexes are bigger than the foundation. But here's where it gets interesting. When your OnlyFans alone has pulled $6.2 million from one account, when you own the building your studio is in, when you have 20 dispensary locations generating revenue, when your label roster includes Peso Peso, who built a genuine independent following of his own, and when you are landing on the Billboard Hot 100 independently in 2026, the foundation is not a question. The flexes are just the marketing department doing its job. Let me talk about why this model beats the traditional label path, because this comparison is the one that really makes Sauce Walka's choices look like genius in hindsight. A standard major label deal in the mid-2010s for an artist at Sauce Walka's level would have looked something like this: a $2 to $5 million advance that is fully recoupable, 15 to 20% of net recording royalties after recoupment, zero publishing ownership, zero master ownership, label controls release schedules, creative direction, and marketing spend. And if the commercial numbers do not satisfy the label in the first album cycle, you get dropped, still unrecouped on paper with no catalog to show for it. Real talk, there are artists who have had songs that millions of people remember, who toured arenas, who were household names for a moment, and who are technically still in debt to a label today because the recoupment math never resolved in their favor. That is the system Sauce Walka chose not to participate in. By staying independent, keeping his masters, running his own label, controlling his publishing, and building physical businesses in Houston on top of the music, he created a structure where every income stream works for him permanently rather than working for a label until it is paid back. The independent artist who owns everything and generates $3 million keeps $3 million minus operational costs. The label artist who generates $10 million might walk away with less than $1 million after the label takes its share and recoups its advance. At the end of the day, what Sauce Walka's story is really about is not just one rapper's portfolio. It is about a proof of concept that independence combined with genuine community investment, combined with a brand strong enough to carry real commercial weight across music, real estate, nightlife, cannabis, digital content, merchandise, and consumer products simultaneously, can produce something that no single label deal could have created. He built it from 1419 South Loop West outward. He built it from the southwest side of Houston outward. He built it with his name on the building, his face on the brand, and his money staying in the city that made him. The real question now is what the next chapter looks like. The video game drops with Lil Durk, Kodak Black, and Key Glock as playable characters, and suddenly TSF has a presence in gaming. The dispensary network at 20+ locations keeps growing in a market that is expanding. Splash House establishes itself as a Houston nightlife institution. The catalog keeps generating passive income permanently. The OnlyFans operation keeps running 12 accounts. And whatever companies people do not even know about yet, the ones he mentioned on the podcast, those are sitting quietly in the background compounding. The machine is already built. It is already running. And the most interesting part of Sauce Walka's Texas empire might not have happened yet. What do y'all think about what this man has put together in Houston? Drop it in the comments right now because I genuinely want to know what you see when you look at this operation. And click the video on screen for more deep dives into how the biggest names in hip-hop are actually building their money. We go deep on this channel. Stay locked in. Now let's zoom out for a second and really sit with what the TSF roster means as a business asset, because this piece of the empire does not get enough attention. When Sauce Walka signed Peso Peso to the Sauce Factory, he was not just adding an artist to a lineup. Peso Peso went on to build a genuine independent fan base with millions of streams and a following that extended well beyond Houston. Every stream Peso Peso generates, every show he plays, every merchandise unit he sells flows back through the TSF structure that Sauce Walka built and owns. Rizzu is another TSF artist who has appeared on high-profile projects, including Sauce Father 2, alongside Travis Scott and Lil Yachty, which means his visibility is growing at the same time as the label's profile. Fifth Ward JP brings a Houston legacy credibility to the roster that connects TSF to the city's deep musical history. Raji Diego and Sancho Saucy round out a roster that covers multiple lanes and multiple audiences simultaneously. Now in the music business, we know that a label with a functioning roster is not the same thing as an artist with a record deal. A label is a business that generates income whether or not the founder releases new music. If Sauce Walka took 6 months off tomorrow, TSF would still be operating, still developing artists, still collecting label percentages, still building the brand. That kind of passive infrastructure income is what separates artists who build businesses from artists who are the business. Sauce Walka has clearly been building toward the former for years, and the roster he assembled reflects that thinking. The cultural impact that ties all of this together is something you feel before you can even explain it. Sauce Walka is publicly credited with coining the word drip as it is used in modern hip-hop. Think about that for a second. A word that has appeared in thousands of songs, in advertising campaigns, in fashion branding, in social media captions by people who have never heard of him. That word came from his lane. That kind of cultural authorship does not show up on a balance sheet, but it absolutely contributes to brand equity in ways that are real and measurable when it comes to partnership opportunities, licensing conversations, and the weight his name carries in any business room he walks into. He said it plainly on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast when he told Gillian Wallow that he has a calculated approach to how he presents himself publicly, even admitting that he sometimes downplays his intelligence strategically to gain access to certain rooms and opportunities. That is not the statement of someone who got lucky and bought some stuff. That is the statement of someone who has been thinking about how power and perception work together since before the money arrived. And the Houston-specific advantage cannot be overstated when you look at this whole picture together. Texas has no state income tax. Houston's cost of commercial real estate is a fraction of what the same square footage would cost in Los Angeles or Miami. The city's population of over 2 million people represents a massive local consumer base for nightlife, cannabis retail, food, and entertainment. And the loyalty of the Houston community toward artists who stay and invest is a cultural reality that has real economic consequences. When Splash House opened, it was not just a club opening. It was a Houston event. When the Strip Center at 1419 South Loop West opened with Codeine Corner, it was not just a retail moment. It was a statement about what it looks like when one of the city's own comes back and plants a flag, instead of just passing through. That is what people in Houston mean when they say the name with that particular weight. That is what the ownership narrative is really about. Not paperwork, not titles, but the visible, undeniable reality that one man stayed, built, invested, and turned a Southwest Houston upbringing into a multi-layer commercial operation that generates income from music, from real estate, from nightlife, from cannabis, from digital content, from merchandise, from consumer products, from a developing artist roster and from a video game that has not even dropped yet. That is the mind-blowing Texas Empire, and it was built one piece at a time with Houston as the foundation for all of it. Now let's talk about something that audiences always want to understand when they see somebody living at this level. The relationship between what you see and what is actually underneath it. Because the cars and the jewelry and the clubs are visible. They are designed to be visible. But the real story of how Sauce Walka sustains all of that is in the parts that do not make the Instagram grid. It is in the strip center on the South Loop that generates commercial rental income in addition to housing his own businesses. It is in the OnlyFans accounts, 12 of them running simultaneously, turning a content strategy that most people treated as a joke into a six-figure per year minimum operation that has already cleared over $6 million from a single account. It is in the dispensary network that now spans over 20 locations with the THC Club brand, operating in a cannabis market that is still in its early expansion phase in Texas, and therefore positioned to grow significantly as regulations continue to evolve. It is in the label deal structures with its TSF artists that generate income from every unit of commercial activity those artists produce. The real kicker, though, is how all of these pieces protect each other. When music revenue slows down because an album cycle ends, the real estate income keeps moving. When streaming has a slow month, the nightlife business at Splash House is filling up on a Friday night regardless. When the dispensary locations have a strong week, that income offsets anything soft on the digital side. This is what diversification actually looks like in practice for an independent artist who took ownership seriously from day one. It is not theoretical, it is structural. It is built into the way the operation runs. Sauce Walka has remained rooted in Houston in a way that gives the entire empire a coherence and a cultural identity that money alone cannot buy. You cannot manufacture what he has in that city. You cannot move to Houston from somewhere else and build what he built there. The credibility is baked into the biography. Southwest Side, 2007, starting as AWOLK with Most Heard. 2014 becoming Sauce Walka and founding TSF in the same year. A decade plus of consistent presence, consistent output, consistent reinvestment, and consistent Houston energy that never wavered even when the industry would have rewarded him for sounding like something more palatable to a national mainstream audience. He never did. He stayed the course, he stayed in the city, and the city stayed with him right back. That loyalty is the foundation underneath everything else. It is what fills Splash House on weekends. It is what moves units of Ski Taste and Sauce Walka gear. It is what makes a strip center opening at 1419 South Loop West feel like a community moment instead of just a commercial transaction. And it is what will make the video game launch, when it happens, feel like a Houston event even if people all over the world are buying it. Because everything Sauce Walka touches is coded as Houston first. That is the brand, that is the empire. And that is why when people in the city say he owns it, they mean every single word. $12 million in real estate, houses for his mama, a house for his daddy, a luxury condo sitting in North Dallas, and every single brick of it, every deed, every closing, every property stacked under that name was being built while Pooh Shiesty was sitting in a federal prison in Pennsylvania with no release date in sight. Y'all need to hear this, because this ain't a story about a rapper who got rich and bought a mansion. Nah, this is a story about a real Memphis family that moved differently, that thought differently, that operated on a whole other level while the rest of the world thought Lontrell Williams Jr. was done. I'm about to break down every property, every price, every move, and by the time I'm finished, you're going to understand exactly why Pooh Shiesty came home and went right back to the top, because the foundation was already laid. $12 million worth of foundation. Let's get into it. To really understand this real estate story, you gotta understand who Pooh Shiesty is, and more importantly, you gotta understand who his father is. Because the real architect of this whole portfolio ain't just Pooh. Lontrell Williams Jr., born November 8, 1999 in Memphis, Tennessee, came up out of South Memphis, Cane Creek Apartments to be specific. That ain't a neighborhood you come from and talk soft. That's a neighborhood that either breaks you or builds you into something unmovable. For Pooh Shiesty, it built him. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., goes by a name the streets of Memphis know well, Mob Boss. And that ain't just a rap alias, fam. That man built a reputation in South Memphis from the ground up. He opened Club Martini, one of the most popping clubs in Memphis in its era. He founded Mob Ties Records, an independent label, and gave local artists a platform when nobody else was checking for Memphis like that. He was in the studio. He understood the business. He understood the streets. streets. He understood both worlds simultaneously. This is important. Keep that in the back of your mind, because when his son blows up and then gets locked up, Mob Boss doesn't fold. He doesn't panic. He activates. He becomes the general managing the operation while the captain is behind the wall. Now, Pooh Shiesty's come up is well documented. He signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 Records in 2020. That same year, Back in Blood featuring Lil Durk drops and hits number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. The debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, comes out in early 2021 and debuts at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Number 3. This kid is 21 years old and he's a superstar. And then, the feds catch up. June 2021, Pooh Shiesty is sentenced to 63 months in federal prison. That's over 5 years, gang. He pleaded guilty to conspiring to possess firearms in furtherance of violent crimes and drug trafficking, a plea deal that actually saved him from a potential life sentence. 3 charges dropped, but he's still going to USP Canaan in Pennsylvania, one of the most secure joints in the federal system. Most people thought that was it. Career over, money drying up, name fading, but here's where it gets crazy. While Pooh Shiesty is in a cell in Pennsylvania, his father, Mob Boss, is on the outside making real estate moves, strategic moves, quiet moves, the kind of moves that don't make headlines until years later when the FBI starts pulling property records. Let me break it down for you. Here's the real tea. The Williams family didn't wait for Pooh Shiesty to come home to start building. They started building the moment the music money came in, and they never stopped, even when the artist was behind bars. The name Lontrell Williams starts appearing on property deeds across the Memphis metro area. And here's where it gets layered, because both the father, Lontrell Williams Sr., and the son share that government name. Same first name, same last name. The Shelby County Assessor's website is lit up with that name attached to property after property after property. By the time anyone starts counting, there are more than 10 Memphis area properties registered to a Lontrell Williams. 10, plus additional holdings linked specifically to the father on the outskirts of the city. 10 properties, fam, in the Memphis metro, while Pooh Shiesty is incarcerated. Now, let me be clear. We're not talking about 10 shacks. Memphis real estate has been appreciating hard. The city has been developing. These properties, residential, investment grade, positioned in key suburbs, represent serious long-term wealth building. This is generational money thinking. This is not rapper buys a chain thinking. This is my son is coming home and he's going to have an empire waiting for him thinking. That's Mob Boss operating. That's a father who grew up in the streets, who learned the music business from the inside out, who watched his son become a star overnight. And when the legal system came for his son, he didn't just wait, he worked. The most documented purchase from this period, the family home in Cordova, Tennessee, a Memphis suburb that sits about 20 minutes outside the city. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. Property records show this home was purchased in April 2023 for $656,500. It had been listed at $719,000, meaning somebody negotiated it down over $60,000 from asking price. That's not an accident. That's a calculated move by somebody who understands how transactions work. Pooh Shiesty is still locked up at this point. He won't be released until October 2025, and yet this property is being acquired in his family's name. Deed filed, closing complete, keys in hand. Think about that for a second. Most people in prison are losing money, losing assets, losing everything they built because there's nobody holding it down on the outside. But the Williams family, they're gaining, they're stacking property, they're playing chess while the world thought the game was over for them. But that's not even the crazy part. October 2025. Pooh Shiesty walks out of USP Canaan in Pennsylvania. He's served more than 3 years of that 63-month sentence. Early release, good behavior, the system doing what it's supposed to do when you hold it down inside. He's 25 years old. He's hungry. And for the first time in over 3 years, he can see what his family built while he was away. And the first major move he makes after coming home, he buys his mama a house. No cap. This might be one of the most powerful moments in recent hip-hop. Not because of the price tag, though the price tag is serious, but because of what it says about who Pooh Shiesty is when the cameras aren't watching and nobody's keeping score. February 2026, just a few months after his release, Pooh Shiesty surprises his mother, Gladys Baines, Mama Shiesty, to everybody who knows the family, with a brand new home worth $1.1 million, $1.1 million purchased, deeded, done. He posts the moment on his Instagram story. You can see it. She walks through the front door and immediately understands what's happening. There are balloon letters in the kitchen spelling out home. And Mama Shiesty, a woman who held the family together through 3+ years of her son being behind federal walls, who kept the faith, who kept showing up, she breaks down right there. Not sad crying. The kind of crying that only happens when something so real catches you when you're not ready for it. His luxury real estate agent, Missy Parent, posts about it too. She quotes Pooh Shiesty's own lyrics back at him from his comeback single FDO, which stands for First Day Out. The whole world been waiting on me. I couldn't fumble this. And then she says, thank you for trusting me with your mom. Thank you for trusting me through the process. That phrase, trusting me with your mom, hits different when you understand the weight behind it. This isn't just a transaction. This is a son delivering on a promise he made to himself while sitting in a federal prison cell. I'm gonna come home. I'm gonna take care of my people. I'm not gonna fumble this. $1.1 million. Mama Shiesty is straight. First major public move after prison, and it's for his mother. But here's what really happened behind the scenes. This purchase doesn't happen unless the money was protected while Pooh was locked up. This doesn't happen unless Mob Boss was holding it down and making sure the finances stayed intact across 3+ years of no new income from touring, no new record advances, nothing but streaming residuals, and a family that refused to let the bag disappear. The mom's house is the proof, the receipt, the confirmation that everything that was supposed to be preserved was preserved. Now let's talk about the piece of this story that was already in place before February 2026, the piece in Texas. Here's the part most people don't fully understand, gang, and this is where the real tea gets interesting. When Pooh Shiesty was released from federal prison in October 2025, he was placed into a residential re-entry program in Dallas, Texas. That's standard federal procedure. You serve your time. You transition through supervised re-entry before you're fully free. His records through the Federal Bureau of Prisons show his facility was in Dallas, with a supervised release date of April 11th, 2026. So for several months post-release, Dallas is his city, Dallas is his base. And true to the Williams family standard, they do Dallas like they do everything else. Different. During this period, Pooh Shiesty is connected to a luxury condominium unit at Windrose Tower at Legacy West. Let me paint the picture for you clearly. Legacy West is in North Dallas, technically the Plano corridor, and it is one of the most premium, high-demand real estate areas in the entire Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. Corporate headquarters, high-end dining, luxury retail, the kind of development where the average rent on a unit starts where most people's annual salaries end. Windrose Tower specifically is a luxury high-rise, panoramic views, concierge-level amenities, the type of building that has its own homeowners association board and their own security protocols and their own standards for who lives there and how they live. That is where Pooh Shiesty was based during his re-entry period, and the unit, per official documents, is in both his name and his father's name. Mob Boss is right there in the picture, again, as always, because that's how the Williams family operates. They move together, father and son, same name on the deed, same mission in the streets. Now here's where it gets complicated. An eviction notice enters the picture. The property's landlord, Mano Group LLC, fires off a final notice of multiple lease violations to the Williams family after receiving a string of incident reports from the building's HOA. These reports come in between November 13th and December 7th, 2025, right in that first window after Pooh Shiesty comes home. The notice states each incident constitutes a material breach of the lease in the building's governing documents. Translation: there's activity at that luxury condo that the building is not comfortable with. Multiple incidents, multiple reports, back to back, documented. What exactly was happening? That's where the records get thin and the streets start speculating. But what's not speculative is this: the documentation from that condo eventually becomes part of the larger federal picture being built around Pooh Shiesty as 2025 turns into 2026. But here's what that Dallas condo tells you about the portfolio strategy, regardless of how things ended up. Even under supervised federal re-entry, even when Pooh Shiesty technically still belongs to the system, the standard is luxury. The standard is Legacy West. The standard is a high-rise condo in North Dallas, not a halfway house room or a budget setup. That mentality, refusing to operate below a certain standard regardless of external circumstances, that is embedded in the Williams family DNA. It's the same thinking that bought the Cordova property while Pooh was locked up. It's the same thinking that put $1.1 million into Mama Shiesty's home the moment the opportunity presented itself. It's the same thinking that says, we don't downgrade, we don't shrink, we don't accept less than what we've built ourselves toward. The Dallas condo is part of the portfolio, another marker on a map of real estate wealth that the Williams family has been building piece by piece, year by year, property by property, across Memphis and Texas both. Here's the thing nobody was ready for, gang. All of this, the mom's mansion, the Cordova family home, the 10+ Memphis properties, the Dallas luxury condo, none of it became public knowledge in full until the federal government showed up and made it unavoidable. April 1st, 2026, 6 in the morning. FBI agents are at the Cordova property, the 4-bedroom, 3.5-bathroom home on Beaver Valley Lane. They're going in and out for hours. They come out carrying computer monitors, brown paper bags full of evidence. They search every vehicle parked in the garage. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is on site alongside the feds. Neighbors are watching from their driveways. Pooh Shiesty isn't even there. He's in Dallas, where federal authorities arrest him separately. His father, Mob Boss, is taken into custody at the Cordova home. Father and son arrested the same morning. 8 other people arrested across Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville simultaneously. And when reporters start pulling up property records on the Shelby County Assessor's website, trying to understand who owns this home, who lives here, who this family really is, that's when the full scope of the real estate portfolio starts coming into focus for the public. They search for Lontrell Williams. The assessor's database lights up. Property after property after property registered under that name across the Memphis metro area. More than 10 properties, plus the father's separate holdings on the outskirts of the city, plus the Cordova home itself at $656,500, plus the $1.1 million mama's mansion that had gone viral on Instagram just 2 months earlier, plus the Dallas connection. The internet went crazy for real, because suddenly this wasn't just another rapper arrest story. Suddenly the headline wasn't just about the legal situation. It was about what had been quietly assembled in the background while the world was watching the music career and the court dates. A $12 million real estate portfolio, built mostly in silence, revealed by federal agents who came looking for something else entirely. That's the most calculated part of the whole operation. No cap. The Williams family never announced these moves publicly. Pooh Shiesty wasn't posting property deeds. Mob Boss wasn't doing press about buying Memphis real estate while his son was incarcerated. They kept the money moves invisible. They let the music be the public face and kept the wealth building behind closed doors until the government showed up and made the doors irrelevant. The streets been knowing. The ones who really move never tell you what they're building until it's already built. Let me zoom out, fam, because this story is bigger than Pooh Shiesty, bigger than Memphis, bigger than one family's real estate portfolio. This story is about a question hip-hop has been trying to answer for 40 years. How do you take what you earn in the streets and in the music and turn it into something that lasts? Something that your kids can touch? Something that exists after the charts move on and the culture shifts and the next generation of artists comes up? Most of the time, the answer has been, you don't. You spend it, you lose it. You go away for a few years and come home to nothing. The music money goes to lawyers and bail and lifestyle and everybody who was eating off your name while you were up. That's the cycle that repeats itself constantly in this culture, and it's a cycle that has kept generational wealth out of reach for countless families who had every opportunity to build it. The Williams family broke that cycle, and the way they broke it is instructional. It starts with Mob Boss understanding something that most people in his position don't, that his son's success represented a window that could close at any time for any reason, legal or otherwise. So the mission wasn't just to enjoy the success. The mission was to convert the success into hard assets before the window could close. Music money is volatile. Streaming numbers fluctuate. Record deals run out. Touring stops when you stop being able to tour. But a deed to a property in Memphis? That don't fluctuate. That compounds. That appreciates. That generates rental income even when you're not generating new music. That exists in your children's name and your grandchildren's name if you structure it right. So while Pooh Shiesty was in USP Canaan, Mob Boss was converting music money into Memphis real estate, property by property, deed by deed. More than 10 transactions across the metro area. A $656,500 Cordova home purchased in April 2023, mid-sentence. A separate property on the outskirts of the city in the the father's name specifically. A portfolio being assembled like a puzzle, quietly, consistently, with no audience and no applause. And then Pooh Shiesty comes home in October 2025, steps back into his power, and the first thing he adds to the portfolio is a $1.1 million home for his mother. That move says everything about values. You can talk about what you'll do for your family when you make it. Actually doing it, actually buying your mama a $1 million home the first chance you get after walking out of federal prison, that's a different conversation entirely. Add it all up: the Cordova family compound, the 10+ Memphis Metro properties, the Dallas luxury condo at Windrose Tower in Legacy West, the $1.1 million Mama's Mansion, $12 million in real estate, assembled across years, across states, across circumstances that would have broken most people's financial momentum entirely. That is the blueprint, fam. Move quiet, stack property, protect the family, maintain the standard, and when your people come home from wherever the world sent them, make sure there's something real for them to come home to. Real, recognize real. And this right here, this is as real as it gets. Here's where I want to leave y'all with something to think about. The culture celebrates the chains. The culture celebrates the cars, the bottles, the videos, and look, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your grind. Pooh Shiesty earned that. Mob Boss earned that. The Williams family earned everything they have. But what separates them from 100 other artists who made the same money and have nothing to show for it? It's the thinking behind the moves. It's the understanding that real wealth isn't what you show. It's what you own. It's what's on the deed. It's what's in the assessor's records. It's what's still there when the music slows down and the legal troubles come and life tests you in ways you couldn't have predicted. $12 million in real estate, built by a Memphis family that refused to let their money be as temporary as their troubles. Pooh Shiesty's story is far from over. The legal situation he finds himself in as of early 2026 is serious, and only time will tell how that chapter resolves. But the real estate story, the portfolio story, the story of a father who held the bag down while his son did time and made sure there was something worth coming home to, that story is already written, and it's one of the most important financial stories in hip-hop in the last decade. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Mob Boss make the right moves? And what does it take for more families in the culture to think like this? Let me know what y'all think. Subscribe if you want the real tea delivered with no filter. We out. Right now, if you search Lil Baby's name online, you're going to find something interesting. People aren't just talking about his music. They aren't just debating his top 5 status or counting his platinum plaques. They're talking about something bigger, something that goes beyond the charts, beyond the streams, beyond the sold-out arenas. People are talking about how this man from the southwest side of Atlanta has built something so deeply rooted in that city, so financially layered, so culturally significant, that the streets started saying he owns a whole block. And the wild thing is, they are not wrong. But the full story of how that happened, the actual blueprint behind the empire, is something most people have never had broken down for them. And that is exactly what we're doing today, because Lil Baby is not just one of the biggest rappers alive right now. He is one of the most calculated, most quietly powerful, and most deeply Atlanta-connected figures the music industry has ever seen. And by the time this video is done, you are going to understand exactly how a kid who grew up with next to nothing turned his name, his city, and his moves into something that looks less like a rap career and more like a dynasty. So stay right here, because this one is about to hit different. Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome back. And if you're new here, you are landing on the right video at the right time. Today we are going deep on Dominique Armani Jones, the man the world knows as Lil Baby. And we're not doing the surface level stuff. We're not just recapping the hits. We're breaking down the full architecture of what this man has built. From the block he grew up on in Oakland City, all the way to the businesses, the labels, the real estate, the brand deals, and the kind of community influence that money alone can't buy. This is the full picture, and it starts where every Atlanta story starts, with the city itself. Atlanta is not just a place. Anyone who has ever spent real time in that city will tell you it is a living, breathing force. It is a city that has produced more generational rap talent per capita than almost anywhere else on earth. It birthed Outkast, T.I., Ludacris, Gucci Mane, Young Jeezy, Future, Young Thug, 21 Savage, Gunna, and now Lil Baby. But Atlanta is also a city of severe economic contrast. Gleaming towers and luxury developments exist just miles away from neighborhoods where opportunity is scarce, and the pressure to survive on the streets is absolutely real. That is the environment that shaped Dominique Jones. And to understand the empire, you have to understand where it started. Lil Baby was born on December 3rd, 1994, in the Oakland City neighborhood of Southwest Atlanta, Georgia. Oakland City is not the part of Atlanta that gets featured in travel magazines. It's the part of the city where families fight every single day to keep things together, where kids grow up fast, where the pressure of the streets is not some abstract concept but a daily reality that lives right outside your front door. Dominique grew up in a single-parent household. His father left the family when he was just 2 years old, leaving his mother to raise him and his 2 sisters on her own. That kind of foundation, that kind of early absence leaves a mark. And for Dominique, it translated into a restless energy that the school system was never going to be able to contain. He was not a kid who struggled with intelligence. By multiple accounts, he was actually bright. He picked up numbers fast. He understood patterns. He had a kind of street IQ that the people around him could see even when he was young. But the academic environment was never where he was going to find his footing. He dropped out of Booker T. Washington High School in the 9th grade, and from there, the streets became his classroom. He started dealing drugs. He started running in circles where making money fast felt more real than any long-term plan somebody in a suit was going to lay out for him. By his early teens, he was already catching charges. In early 2012, he was hit with possession with intent to sell. In 2013, another marijuana charge. And in 2014, he was arrested again on charges of possession with intent to sell, and this time it resulted in incarceration. He was locked up for 2 years. Now here's the thing about that prison stint. A lot of people would look at that moment in his life as the lowest point, and in many ways it was, but it was also the turning point, because while Dominique Jones was behind bars, something was shifting in him. He was sitting with himself in a way that the streets never allowed. He was thinking. And when he came home in 2016, he came back different, not soft, not broken. Different in the sense that he now had a clarity about what he wanted his life to look like, even if he did not yet fully know how to build it. Here's where the story of Lil Baby, the rapper, actually begins. When he came home from prison, the world around him had changed. The friends he had grown up with in the music industry were moving. Quality Control Records, the label that would eventually become one of the most dominant forces in Atlanta hip-hop, was operational. Coach K, the label's co-founder and a man who had been in Baby's orbit even before his incarceration, believed in what he saw in this kid. He had told people that Dominique had the swag, the lingo, and the respect around the city. And when Baby came home, Coach K pulled him into the studio, not as a guest, not as a visitor, as an artist. At first, Lil Baby was not even trying to rap. He was hanging around the Quality Control studios because that's where the movement was. And he was still the same guy who people respected on the street. He would be in those sessions while Migos were cutting records, while other QC artists were grinding out their early projects. He was observing, and then he started rapping, and almost immediately, the people in that building knew something was there. Young Thug took him under his wing. Gunna became one of his closest collaborators. And by April of 2017, less than a year after he was released from prison, Lil Baby dropped his debut mixtape, Perfect Timing, and let that sink in for a minute. This man went from being incarcerated to releasing music to a serious audience within roughly a year. That is not a normal trajectory. That is something that only happens when the talent is undeniable and the hunger is at a level most people can't match. Perfect Timing hit the Atlanta underground immediately. People were talking. The authenticity was right there in every bar. This was not somebody performing a character. This was somebody living what they were rapping about, translating real life into music with a flow and a cadence that felt completely natural. And just like that, the machine started moving. He did not slow down. He released Harder Than Hard in August of 2017. Then came the collaborative tape with Marlo, his close friend and fellow Atlanta rapper, titled To the Hard Way, in October of the same year. And then in December of 2017, Too Hard dropped, led by the single Freestyle. That song caught fire. The music video racked up hundreds of millions of views on YouTube, and Freestyle was more than a hit. It was a statement. It told the world that Lil Baby was not going anywhere and that Atlanta had another voice that was going to matter on the national stage. But here's where it gets real. 1994, Baby coming into his own at 23 years old, releasing 4 projects in less than a year, building a fan base from nothing and doing it all with that unmistakable Atlanta rawness that you cannot manufacture. The streets were already locked in. Now it was time for the mainstream to catch up. And in 2018, it did. Harder Than Ever, his debut studio album, dropped in May and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. The album had features from some of the biggest names in the game, including Drake, and the single Yes Indeed with Drake peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. That was the crossover moment. That was the song that introduced Lil Baby to fans who weren't necessarily plugged into the Atlanta underground. Yes, Indeed was everywhere. Radio, playlists, at the cookout, at the club, in people's cars at 2 in the morning. It was the kind of record that doesn't just chart, it gets embedded into a cultural moment. But Baby was not done in 2018 by a long shot. Later that year, he linked with Gunna for the collaborative mixtape Drip Harder, and that project produced one of the defining records of that whole era in hip-hop. Drip Too Hard. That record went on to be certified diamond by the RIAA Diamond. For context, that is 10 times platinum. That means 10 million units sold or equivalent in a landscape where albums go platinum and people celebrate. Drip Too Hard went diamond. It peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it turned Lil Baby and Gunna into one of the most iconic duos that Atlanta had produced since the golden era of the city's sound. That same year, Street Gossip dropped and debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. This is the kind of consistency that separates superstars from artists who have a moment. Lil Baby was not having a moment. He was building a career, bar by bar, tape by tape, record by record. And what made it even more powerful was that every piece of music he released felt like it was coming from the same authentic place. He was not reinventing himself to chase trends. The trends were chasing him. Then came 2020. And fam, My Turn changed everything. My Turn is one of those albums that you can point to as a genuine cultural landmark. Released in February of 2020, it debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It sat at the top of the chart for 5 weeks. It went quadruple platinum. It became the best-selling album of the entire year 2020. In all genres, not just hip-hop. All genres. That means it outsold everything else that year. That is a statistic that is worth sitting with because 2020 was not a light year for music. The pandemic had people locked inside with nothing to do but consume content. And Lil Baby's album was the one that captured the culture in that moment more than any other project from any other artist. My Turn produced hit after hit. Whoa, We Paid with 42 Doug, Some to Prove. The album featured appearances from Gunna, Future, Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Wayne, Young Thug, and Moneybagg Yo. It was a celebration of Atlanta's reach and influence, a project that showed how many lanes Baby was moving through simultaneously. And then in June of 2020, amidst the protests following the murder of George Floyd, Lil Baby did something that nobody expected from him at that level of commercial success. He dropped The Bigger Picture. The Bigger Picture was not just a rap record, it was a statement. It was a politically charged, emotionally raw, deeply personal song about police brutality, systemic racism, and what it means to come from where he came from and watch the world respond to Black Death the way it did in 2020. The song debuted at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It received 2 Grammy nominations. And Baby donated the proceeds to charitable causes and organizations fighting for criminal justice reform. He took a moment that could have just been a musical win and turned it into something that connected him to his community on a level that no amount of platinum records could manufacture. That authenticity carried into 2021. He collaborated with Lil Durk on The Voice of the Heroes, a joint album that debuted at number 1 and further cemented both artists as the 2 most consistent forces in modern rap. And then he was featured on Hurricane with Kanye West and The Weeknd. That collaboration won him the Grammy Award for Best Melodic Rap Performance, his first Grammy. And for a man who had watched the Recording Academy overlook him, even when My Turn was the best-selling album of the year, that win meant something, not just as a trophy, but as a validation that the culture had finally caught up to what his fan base already knew. In 2022, It's Only Me came out and became his 3rd consecutive number 1 album on the Billboard 200. 3 albums, 3 number 1s. That is an achievement that puts him in a very short list of artists in the entire history of recorded music. And then in January of 2025, Wham debuted at number 1 as well, extending that streak and proving that his commercial dominance has not slowed down one bit. Now let's talk about the money, because the music has translated into financial success on a level that most people do not fully grasp. Streaming alone has generated massive revenue. In 2020, his streaming income was reported to be in the range of $9 million for that year alone, driven largely by the dominance of My Turn. His feature verse rate, the amount he charges to appear on someone else's song, went from around $100,000 early in his career to somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 per verse by 2024. He charges over $400,000 per show for live performances. His brand partnerships include deals with Budweiser, Mountain Dew, and Lynx, adding endorsement revenue on top of everything else. His net worth estimates vary across different sources, but the broad consensus places him somewhere in the range of tens of millions of dollars, a figure that continues to grow annually. But here is the real kicker though. The music money, as impressive as it is only one layer of what Lil Baby has built. And this is where the conversation about owning a block, about building an empire in Atlanta, starts to make complete sense. Because somewhere between the platinum plaques and the Grammy stages, Dominique Jones started thinking like a businessman. Not just a rich rapper, a businessman. Let's start with his label. Lil Baby founded 4PF, which stands for Four Pockets Full, in 2017, the same year he released his first mixtape. He was simultaneously launching his music career and building the infrastructure to develop other artists. 4PF signed rappers 42 Dugg and Rilo Rodriguez, giving Baby a stake in the careers of other artists who would go on to generate significant cultural impact and commercial success. But Baby did not stop there. In August of 2023, he leveled up the entire operation by launching Glass Window Entertainment, a new record label in formal partnership with Capitol Music Group and Motown Records. This was not just a name change. This was Baby stepping into the room as a full industry partner with major label backing, putting him in a position where he had access to distribution, marketing infrastructure, and resources that independent labels have to fight for. The debut signee under Glass Window was Rilo Rodriguez, who came with him from 4PF, and the deal was reported to be worth multiple millions. This is what moving like a CEO looks like. Then there is the Seafood Menu Restaurant and Lounge, which opened its doors in Atlanta in July of 2023. Located on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in Southwest Atlanta, near the Atlanta University Center, this was not a celebrity vanity project. This was a carefully planned business venture. Baby partnered with restaurateur Chad Dillon, who had an established reputation in Atlanta's dining scene, and he brought in his sister Daja Jones as a business partner, keeping the operation within the family. The interior design was handled by a renowned black female designer who brought Baby's vision to life while paying homage to Atlanta's hip-hop heritage. The restaurant features 7 signature butter sauces, a menu that blends classic Southern seafood dishes with unique twists, and an atmosphere built around the culture and history of the city it sits in. And the vision for the future of that restaurant is not just one location. Baby has spoken publicly about plans to franchise the seafood menu and potentially bring its sauces into retail stores. That is thinking 10 steps ahead. That is not a rapper opening a restaurant. That is an entrepreneur building a food brand that happens to be backed by a rapper's platform. On the real estate side, Lil Baby has made a series of strategic property investments, particularly in Atlanta. He owns a luxury mansion in Atlanta that is valued at over $5 million. He reportedly holds additional investment properties across Georgia used for rental income and to house family members. But the piece of the real estate story that carries the most weight symbolically is this. He has gone back and purchased property in his old neighborhood, the same blocks where he came up, the same areas where he once hustled to survive. He has bought stores in those areas. He has put money back into the physical landscape of Oakland City and the surrounding communities in Southwest Atlanta. And that is not just a business decision. That is a statement about who he is and where he came from. When an artist goes back and owns the corners where they once just tried to make it, that is where the phrase owning a block stops being hyperbole and starts being documentation. For people who might not fully understand what it means when the streets say someone owns a block or built an empire in their city, let me break it down for y'all. It is not always a literal statement about deeds and property titles, though in Baby's case, some of it literally is. It is a reflection of concentrated influence. It is the recognition that when a person's name, money, presence, and business activity are deeply embedded in a specific place, they shape the reality of that place, whether they are standing on the corner or not. Baby employs people from his community. He opens businesses that bring commerce and visibility to neighborhoods that are often overlooked by mainstream economic development. He gives back through donations and programming. He creates opportunity through his label. He builds relationships with local institutions. All of that together is what the streets call ownership, because ownership is not just about what is in your name, it is about what would be missing if you were gone. And here is what makes Baby's situation even more specific and more powerful than your average celebrity relationship with their hometown. He never left Atlanta in the ways that sometimes happen when artists blow up and move to Los Angeles or New York or wherever the industry pulls them. Atlanta is still his base. Atlanta is still where his family is, where his businesses are, where his children are growing up, where his roots are planted. That ongoing, active, daily presence in the city is part of what makes the empire feel real, rather than just something that exists on paper or in interviews. He didn't get rich and disappear. He got rich and stayed. Now let's talk about how he moves on a day-to-day level, because the lifestyle that Lil Baby maintains is its own kind of statement. The cars are part of the legend. He has been seen in Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, custom builds worth well over $250,000 each. The fashion is intentional. High-end designer labels, Louis Vuitton, Celine, Moncler, brands that signal both taste and financial status. The travel is global. He is someone who can be in Atlanta one week and in Europe the next, performing for massive audiences who have been waiting to see him live. His home in Atlanta is reportedly equipped with a recording studio, custom design elements, and the kind of space that reflects both the success he has achieved and the desire to stay close to the city that built him. But what separates Baby's lifestyle from being just a display of wealth is the way it sits alongside his values. He is a father to 2 sons, Jason and Loyal. And by all accounts, being present for his children matters deeply to him. He has spoken about not wanting to be the absent father that he experienced growing up. He wants to break that cycle. And in a career built on transformation, that personal transformation, from a young man who grew up without a father to a man who is determined to show up for his kids, is maybe the most powerful one of all. There is also the educational dimension that a lot of people slept on. Lil Baby completed the Launching New Ventures program at Harvard Business School. Let that land for a second. The same man who dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, the same man who was incarcerated in his early 20s, walked through the doors of Harvard University and completed a business education program. That is not just a feel-good story. That is evidence of a mindset. It shows that at every stage of his career, Baby has been working to sharpen the tools he needs for the next level. He is not content to be an artist who writes good songs. He wants to understand business at the highest level so that nobody can take advantage of him and so that every move he makes is calculated. And then there is the community engagement side. In 2020, when he released The Bigger Picture, he donated the proceeds to bail funds and criminal justice reform organizations. He has paid tuition and college application fees for students in Atlanta who could not afford them. He has launched scholarship initiatives and job readiness programs for young Black men in Georgia. He visited the White House to discuss social justice reform. He has used his platform not just to flex, but to fight for the people who look like him and come from where he comes from. That is what separates an artist from a leader. Now, this is where we gotta go even deeper, because the empire does not stop where most people think it stops. The restaurant, the label, the real estate, those are the chapters that made headlines. But there is a whole other layer to what Lil Baby has been building in Atlanta that does not always get the attention it deserves. And when you stack it all together, that is when you truly start to understand why people talk about this man like he owns more than just a block. Let's talk about the money at the macro level first, because the numbers are staggering when you lay them out flat. His 2023 world tour alone generated over $40 million in gross revenue, $40 million from touring in a single year. And his per-show fee, which sits at over $400,000 per night, not including merchandise, means that every time he steps on a stage anywhere in the world, he is pulling in what some people make in a decade. His feature verse rate, the price someone pays just to get his voice on their record, is somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 per verse. That is not a superstar pricing himself high for the sake of ego. That is a market rate reflection of what his presence does to a song's commercial potential. When Lil Baby shows up on a track, that track moves, and the people cutting those checks know it. But here's where it gets real interesting. That touring income, that feature money, that streaming revenue, none of it is just sitting in a bank account collecting dust. Baby has been systematically converting active income into passive income, which is the exact move that separates artists who are rich while they're hot from businessmen who stay wealthy long after the charts move on. Real estate is the core of that strategy, and the way he has approached real estate in Atlanta specifically is something that goes far beyond buying a nice house to live in. In late 2024, Lil Baby filmed himself walking through Oakland City, the very neighborhood where he grew up, the same streets where he was dealing, where he caught his first charges, where his whole story began. And what he was doing on those streets was not reminiscing. He was buying property. He purchased multiple homes and apartment buildings in and around the same block he came from. And what made that moment so powerful was what he said about why he was doing it. He was not buying those properties just for himself. He was putting them in position for his sons, Jason and Loyal, to inherit. He was teaching them about how real estate appreciates in value. He was showing his children firsthand what generational wealth looks like when it is built intentionally and passed down deliberately. Think about that for a second. The same corners where Dominique Jones once had to hustle to survive, the same blocks where the only economy available to him was the street economy, now have his name on the deed. He literally went back and bought the block, not as a flex, not as a symbol, as a calculated investment in his family's future and a direct statement that the neighborhood that shaped him now has a stake in his success and he has a stake in its future. That is what ownership looks like when it is rooted in something real. And it does not stop with real estate and restaurants. Lil Baby's 4PF brand, which stands for 4 Pockets Full, was never just a label name or a clothing line concept. It is a philosophy. 4 Pockets Full means everyone around you eats. It means the wealth does not stay concentrated in one person's hands. It means you build something big enough that it creates opportunity for the people in your orbit, and he has lived that out. Through Glass Window Entertainment, through the restaurant that employs people from his community, through the back-to-school events that directly serve the families in his old neighborhood, through the scholarship he launched at his own former high school, Booker T. Washington. He launched a scholarship for the same school he dropped out of. That is a full circle that most people never complete. And then there is the Jones Project, his official nonprofit organization, which he launched in 2025 to formalize the community work he had been doing informally for years. The 5th annual Back to School Fest, hosted through the Jones Project at West End Production Park, right in the heart of his old neighborhood, served over 4,000 students and families. Free shoes, book bags loaded with supplies, school uniforms, haircuts, braiding services, carnival games, pop-up classrooms, food from local restaurants, all of it free. All of it in the West End. And what separated this event from the typical celebrity charity appearance was that Baby did not just write a check and send a team. He showed up. He was there. He took photos with every kid who ran up to him. He stayed for the whole event. A parent in attendance said it directly. She said a lot of artists just throw money and don't really come to these types of events, but he came and actually stayed and showed face. That presence, that decision, to physically be there and be seen by the kids in his community is a form of investment that no dollar amount can fully capture. He has also partnered with Foot Locker to fully refurbish the basketball court at Oakland City Park, the park in his old neighborhood where kids grow up playing ball and trying to find something to hold on to. 200 bikes distributed to neighborhood children, laptops and school supplies given out through his foundation events, scholarships for students who could not afford to pursue higher education. These are not random acts of charity. These are coordinated, repeating investments in the human capital of the community he came from. And when a neighborhood's children are better equipped, better educated, better supported, the value of the community itself rises. And Baby owns property in that community now, so his philanthropic investment and his financial investment are actually working in the same direction simultaneously. That is a level of strategic thinking that goes beyond what most people give him credit for. Now add all of this up. The streaming income that runs 24/7 whether he is awake or asleep, the publishing royalties that generate quarterly checks from every mechanical stream, every radio play, every licensing deal, the label revenue from Glass Window Entertainment with artists like Rilo Rodriguez operating under a multi-million-dollar deal at the Capitol and Motown level, the restaurant and its franchise ambitions, the real estate portfolio in Atlanta appreciating in value as the city continues to develop, the brand partnerships with Budweiser, Mountain Dew, and Lynx, generating endorsement income on top of everything else. The Harvard business education sharpening his ability to evaluate deals and protect himself in rooms where people historically tried to take advantage of artists who didn't know better. When you stack all of that together, you are not looking at a rapper who got rich. You are looking at a diversified economic entity that happens to have a rap career at its center. Now let's zoom out one more time, because this is the point in the conversation where it's worth reflecting on what the Lil Baby story actually means beyond just one man's biography. Because the way the music industry works has fundamentally changed. In the era of Jay-Z and the early moguls, the idea of a rapper becoming a businessman was mostly discussed in terms of clothing lines, cognac brands, and sports team ownership. And those are real and legitimate paths. But Lil Baby represents a different kind of evolution. He built a label from the ground up while still being in the early stages of his own career. He opened a restaurant in his community, not in Beverly Hills. He invested in real estate in the neighborhood that raised him. He completed business education at one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. He partnered with a major label as a full stakeholder rather than just a product. This is what empire building looks like when it is done from the inside out rather than the outside in. He is not trying to buy his way into spaces that were not built for him. He is building new spaces and inviting the right partners in. And the music, as incredible as it is the foundation that everything else is built on. Every time a new fan discovers Drip Too Hard or The Bigger Picture or My Turn, they enter the world of Lil Baby. And once they are in, they find out that this is not just a rapper. This is a brand, a business, a community institution, and a cultural force. The real question going forward is not whether Lil Baby has already built something impressive, because the answer to that is undeniable. The real question is how far this empire goes from here. With Glass Window Entertainment operating at the major label level, with real estate holdings continuing to appreciate, with a restaurant brand that has franchise ambitions, with 4 consecutive #1 albums, with a feature rate that commands premium prices from anyone who wants his voice on their project, and with a community presence that is active and genuine, the ceiling for what he builds over the next decade is essentially unlimited. He is 30 years old. He has been making music professionally for less than a decade. He has already accumulated more commercial success, more cultural impact, and more business infrastructure than most artists achieve in an entire career. And the hunger has not changed. The same drive that pushed him to release 4 projects in his first year, the same determination that made him walk into a Harvard classroom and apply himself to learning business, that is still operating. That is still running underneath everything he does. And that means the story we told today is not a finished chapter. It is an origin story. At the end of the day, when people say Lil Baby owns a block, what they are really saying is that he owns his narrative. He owns his business. He owns his influence. He owns his relationship with Atlanta. He owns his legacy. He came from a place where the odds were stacked against him in every direction, where the absence of a father and the presence of the streets set a trajectory that most people never escape. And he not only escaped it, he went back and bought it. He went back and employed people from it. He went back and built in it. That is what ownership looks like when it is real. Not a deed on a piece of paper, not a luxury house behind a gate, but a man who came from nothing, built something massive, and stayed rooted in where he came from while doing it. That is the empire. That is the block he owns. And that is why, when you search his name and you see people talking about Lil Baby and Atlanta in the same breath as power and influence and business and legacy, they are not exaggerating. If anything, they are still catching up to the reality of what Dominique Armani Jones has already built and what he is still in the process of building every single day. What are your thoughts on Lil Baby's legacy and how far his empire can grow from here? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear from y'all. And if this video gave you something to think about, you already know what to do. Tap the video on screen and let's keep the conversation going.